Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for taking time to, look at the things that I'm creating. I'm going to give you a quick intro and then we're going to get right into it. This video is a closer look at an early 20th century white cotton dress. You know, the quintessential heavily trimmed, lovely pintucks, lace. Yes, it is gorgeous. And I bought it for 18 bucks, which was like super lucky. So we're going to take a look at her and how she's put together, and then I'm gonna kind of show you a little bit of the process that I went through to kind of clean her up a little bit. So here we go. This early 20th century piece brings to mind two things for me. Suffragists marching down Pennsylvania Avenue in their white cotton dresses symbolizing purity, and Anne of Avonlea. You know, grown-up Anne, who wasn't obsessed with puff sleeves. I'm not even sure why. At first glance, this dress is in pretty good condition. She's pretty stable, though the cotton muslin she's made from is so sheer and fine that I wouldn't exactly call her sturdy. There are some holes here and there, some repairs, and some staining. She's pretty discolored, yellow in some places, gray in others. She also stinks. Not like deterioration, like silk has this distinct smell when it's deteriorating, or musty like it's been wet, but like dust or dirt, and I cannot wait to give her a bath. Now, the waist, I do have the center back closures closed, so we can see that this is going to be about 30 inches across the waist. We do have a lot of inset lace, and it crisscrosses down the front and it does in the back, which you can see in a little bit. So there are some holes and weak points in this lace. So we've got, oh golly, so many panels of this is a lot of different pieces. So this, and right to about here, this shoulder piece, and then down the back on the shoulders is one piece. Okay. Then we have these two panels of vertical pin tucks set in. There's two. These are separate. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then these pieces, which actually there is no side seam till we get to the back. And we have another panel of pin tucks. So, I mean, this is a lot of oh golly, it's a lot of stitching. It's a lot of sewing. Pin tucks are machine done. We then have a ruffled kind of lace set in here along the center panel, like kind of waving around up through here. The embroidery is a flower motif with leaves and stems and dots. I just love these dots. Now this is open work, so there's holes cut in, and you can see that the embroidery has done the crisscrossing thing. We've got gathers in specific places, so there are no gathers through these embroidered panels. Some gathers through this middle pin tuck panel, so about from here to here on each side, which is about 1.5 inches. We have gathers, a couple of gathers in here, and this kind of pulls down, and I'm not sure, I can't tell if it's sewn that way or if it's stretched that way. So taking a bust measurement, lying flat, I'm just going to go from armpit to armpit, and then I'll double that. So we've got about a 40-inch bust here. That's a pretty big difference. Now these are half, like elbow length sleeves, and they are cut at an angle, so that where you would bend your arm is going to be shorter than the back. So the sleeve would end about here in the front and probably here in the back, which I love these. I think that is just like the sweetest kind of look for, you know, half sleeves or 3/4 length, whatever you want to call them. So an imprecise measurement of the sleeve opening here is about 12.5 inches, maybe 13 inches. So I mean, that's a pretty loose sleeve. I mean, that's not, so even, you know, for me, it's got some room. So, you know, this would be kind of a comfortable dress to wear, I would say. I love this neckline as well. Like it's got sort of this like a buttonhole kind of stitch along it, and along where these panels are sewn together. This now this is interesting here, and at the waist, you know, we have these panels of these flowers, right? So this is actually a different motif than this one. I hadn't noticed it because these are all joined together by a stem or vine. But here and here, these, I mean not these, but these three are flowers cut out of the fabric and then sewn into place. Some very few stitches. This is hand done, obviously. Well, not obviously, it's hand done. And so it kind of does get fuzzy around the edges because we do have some of the fabric there. It goes down here too. So they're not cutting like right against the embroidered piece. They're cutting around it, and you can see the stitches. Again, with the sleeves, we see this kind of under panel like we had in the other early 1900s. So we have all of this decoration, all of this like embroidery and lace and pin tucks, and then like this just plain white panel that would run down through the armpit. We do have some pit staining. We've got like a lot of like tiny holes in this thing. So got small holes here and here. Like I said, we've got some in the lace here. Under this underarm, we do have some issues, and this seam, which looks like it has been repaired. This seam is open. The underarms are really like a place that get fragile because not only does sweat, like, you know, it's not good for the fabric, but those are like stress points, you know. So the skirt does have several like soiled spots. So we have, you know, here and here, of course, as you can see. We do have these panels that run down the sides and across the skirt. And this beautiful embroidery. Like, I just love it. I love how this is done. The embroidery is coming out from the center, but it's not an eyelet. And then we've got these like mice teeth here to connect the panels. The ruffle, though, gets a little bit interesting because the motif again changes. So it's the same sort of like stem and leaf pattern as we see here, but it's vertical now. And then we have the dots again, but these are eyelets. I also have a thing for these scalloped edges. I cannot handle these, and every time I see them, I just love them. All right, so here we are at the back side of the dress. Now, as you can see, the bodice is very heavily trimmed and decorated as the front. It's repeating this inset lace crisscross pattern even over the placket for the buttons, which I just find like so charming and like a detail, and look how well it lines up. Like, that's insane. So just a really nice like attention to detail. I'm gonna pull this down a little bit so you can see a little better. We have this opening at the top though. I mean, we have 6 little pearl buttons. They're all intact, and they have a really interesting kind of like rope edging to them. Now I don't know if they're original, but they're all there. However, at the top here we have this, like, it's just open. There's no hook and eye or eye. There's no evidence of a hook or eyelet or eye that was sewn in. We do have some of this embroidery edging. It's kind of like a blanket stitch or a buttonhole stitch that's been pulled out, essentially. We also have that here along the center back, and continuing up. Almost looks like somebody was trying to remove it. I mean, it's like that precise. It's all kind of cut in the same area, like somebody took a seam ripper and just went along trying to remove it, and then figured out that this was going to be a lot harder than they thought, and they gave up. Which I'm glad they did, because it's a really lovely detail that covers up, you know, the seam work here, and it's not bad, it's not ugly. It's just an addition, something that like just makes it even more special. Continue the embroidered flower motif. And then we have these rows of pin tucks here, like especially in these like triangles here. Oh my gosh, like I'm floored. But one thing that I am noticing here is the varying widths of the pin tucks. So we have some that are much wider than others, and for the most part they're very consistent, and if you don't really look at it very closely, you don't know, or you don't notice. So it's I've heard it called pleasing to the eye. Like, it's not exact, but it's not jarring. It's not like, oh, those are really uneven. They look even until you really take the time to look at them. Like, these are all look pretty even, and these two are a little thicker, this one especially. So it's these little imperfections, I think, that make these kinds of things wonderful. But I also love like this little dot embroidery detail. I love it. The sleeves also continue the crisscross lace, the ruffled lace, the embroidery, the pin tucks. Then we finished with the same inset lace and ruffled lace, only combined to create this sweet little lace cuff here. Okay, so looking at the skirt, we have this waistband again with the sort of applique embroidered flowers that were cut out of the trim pieces. And we have 2 different kinds of trim here that I'm noticing. So we have the kind that, like this, that has the vine going from flower to flower. And then we have the kind on the, where was it? Shoot, lost it. Oh, here, on these larger side panels that have the vines and leaves going off to the side. But like the big difference that I'm seeing here in the skirt is that we've got these 2, you know, that are the same. This center back piece, however, that is a placket, is the larger piece that's set into the side of the garment. So it's been trimmed and cut. It does not have the little mouse teeth, and you can see the trim going off to the sides. The skirt portion closes with hook and eyes. So here we have 3, and then we have 3 additional on the waistband. We do have a repair here, and we do have these small little inverted pleats, like they're sewn to the outside to kind of create this, like, continue the pin tuck kind of motif. You can even kind of see how it transitions from these narrow pin tucks down to these wider pin tucks that then just you know, blend into the skirt, which is really interesting. The way that it was done, I would say. I mean, like, pleats aren't interesting, but creating those lines that continue down through the bodice into the skirt. Then down here we do have just a regular patch of fabric that's been backed. Oh, yeah, we do have 2 layers of ruffle here. So here's a repair that's been made. The hole in the skirt, in the ruffle at the bottom of the skirt. So we have the hole. The edges have been turned under like just the tiniest bit, and whip stitched, and then running stitch around the patch. Oh no, there are not 2 layers. I was just picking up both sides of the skirt. There is quite a bit of damage and dirt here at the hem, so we do have some more issues, staining, little holes, and then this giant rip that has been repaired. That's probably, oh geez, goes up to here, so like 9 to 10 inches of repair. I mean, and this is kind of like, you know, not unusual to have those kinds of issues in a skirt, especially in the back. Well, let's look at the inside. So we do have a lot of finished, wait, what the heck am I looking at here? Yeah, so like a lot of the edges here are overcast, which is simply a whip stitch going around the edge of the fabric to keep it from fraying. From what I can see, just about everything is using that. The applique though is kind of interesting because what it looks like on the inside is, and the outside actually, is running stitches. Just kind of like wherever in there. And then we do use this sort of like buttonhole kind of blanket stitch to cover that up in a lot of places. The lace is, I just love this. Like, this is the kind of work that I aspire to, but just don't have the patience for. Like theoretically, like in my mind, I would love to have a dress like this. Never gonna make it. It's not gonna happen. I do not have the patience for this kind of like meticulous, tedious kind of work. I mean, there's not really anything that is extraordinary to me. This top button is showing a lot of like stress, a lot of wear, like it was pulled a lot. So maybe there wasn't another closure up here, which just seems very strange to me. So after taking a look at this garment, I mean, I fell in love with it. And so I wanted to improve its condition. Cleaning is not just for aesthetics. It's not just to make it smell better. Sometimes when you have spots or things in your fabric, they can actually eat the fabric, and you might like years and years and years later find a hole where something, you know, just sat there and ate the fabric. So cleaning it, if it's a fabric that's safe to be cleaned, is actually good for it. So sturdy, you know, stable cottons, go for it. The other thing about this dress is, even though I love it, it's kind of a dime a dozen. I mean, you can find these embroidered white cotton things everywhere. They're all over eBay. I feel like people are charging too much for them, but there's a lot of them out there. So if something terrible did happen, it is not the end of the world, okay? But what I used was a product called Retro Clean. Ding! Not an advertisement. This is just a product that was recommended to me by my friend who is the director of collections, knows how to manage and protect the collections in her care, and so Retro Clean. So 3 to 4 tablespoons per bucket of water. The water should be warm. And so what I did was I soaked it in my kids' 1978 blue bathtub that's in the kids' bathroom at our house. I lined the bottom of the tub with muslin, not to like keep the dress away from the tub, because I thoroughly cleaned and rinsed the tub. You do not want any cleaners near antique pieces. But what the muslin would do is, when it was time to come out or time to kind of squeegee out some of the water, I could lift the muslin and not the fabric, because it is a fine fabric, and the weight of water will just, it's added stress that the garment doesn't need. So I lifted it out with the muslin, laid some towels down, laid the muslin and the dress out on the towels, let it dry for a while. Still wasn't very, it was clean, but not as white as I would have liked it to be. So then I took my handy dandy spray bottle of distilled water, and a blanket. I took an old white blanket that we had. I laid it out in the yard, in the sun, in a sunny spot, laid the dress on top, spritzed it with distilled water, and let it sit for an hour or two. Now, this is really a process that's best done in the summertime when you have that real hot direct sun, and it's November, but I wanted to do it before winter really sets in, and there's no sun at all. So I wanted to get that done, and the final product is actually pretty decent. She's back there on the table with my camera. Let me show you how she looks now. I'm actually really pleased with how she turned out. If you have any questions about how to clean and preserve your antique garments, please leave them down in the comments, and thanks for watching.